Before she vanished, she walked on stage wrapped in diamonds, promised the world a revolution, and took billions from people who believed every word. No one imagined that one of the largest financial crimes in modern history would end with its mastermind stepping onto a plane and disappearing forever. No body, no confirmed sightings, no trail that investigators can agree on. Tonight, we follow the rise and disappearance of the woman the FBI calls the Cryptoqueen. On a cold night in late October of 2017, a woman walked through the VIP area of Sofia Airport in Bulgaria. She carried a designer handbag, wore dark clothes, and moved with calm precision. Security cameras recorded her passing without incident. To staff, she was just another first-class passenger. Her name on the boarding list was Dr. Ruja Ignatova. To millions of followers, she was already famous as the self-proclaimed Cryptoqueen.
And say, but Dr. Ruja, did I miss the opportunity? Is it over? What do we do now? And the answer is, actually, this is just the beginning.
The woman who promised to destroy Bitcoin and make ordinary people rich. To investigators in several countries, she was something very different. The suspected architect of one of the largest financial frauds of the century. The flight from Sofia to Athens was short. According to the manifest, she took her seat, and the plane departed as scheduled. When it landed in Greece, she did not appear at any public checkpoint. No confirmed image of her has been recorded since. In the weeks that followed, her company continued to take in money. Promoters kept selling education packages that unlocked digital coins on an internal screen. But the woman at the center of it all, the one whose face filled stadiums, was gone. To understand how one person could raise billions, convince crowds across the world, and then vanish into the shadows, we have to go back long before that flight, before the stages, before the diamonds, to a quiet apartment where a young girl studied harder than anyone else in the room. Ruja Ignatova was born in Bulgaria in 1980, then moved with her family to Germany when she was still a child. They settled in a small industrial town, working factory shifts while she excelled at school. Teachers remembered her as driven, sharp, and fiercely ambitious. She spoke of leaving the noise of the factory floor behind, of stepping into boardrooms instead. She studied law at a respected German university, later adding further studies in finance. She learned the language of contracts and balance sheets, the rules that govern markets, and the gray areas where those rules can be bent. To classmates, she seemed destined for a high-level corporate career. Ruja understood early that success was not just about skill, it was about appearance. She crafted a precise visual image, elegant dresses, perfect makeup, expensive jewelry. She sounded like a specialist and looked like someone who already belonged in the world of money. Before OneCoin, there were smaller ventures, a role in a failing metal factory that was later accused of fraud, an investment fund that collapsed under questions about its conduct. Each episode left traces in court records and business registries. Each time she emerged without lasting damage. By the early 2000s, she had the ingredients she needed for something much bigger. Legal knowledge, financial vocabulary, and the practiced confidence of someone who knew how to command a room. All she needed now was the right story to sell. In 2013, the word cryptocurrency still sounded mysterious to most people. Bitcoin had existed for only a few years, moving mostly between programmers, speculators, and early adopters. For many ordinary investors, it felt too technical, too distant, too hard to understand. Ruja saw an opening. What if someone offered a version of cryptocurrency that felt simple, polished, wrapped in professional language and luxury branding, something that promised all the upside of Bitcoin without the confusion? Around this time, she connected with a network of marketers and promoters who specialized in multi-level sales. They knew how to build structures where each person recruited others beneath them, earning commissions on every purchase down the chain. It was a model that had already created fortunes and scandals. Together they began sketching the outlines of a new project, a coin that did not have to compete on technology, only on story. It would be called OneCoin. In internal documents, it was described as the Bitcoin killer, a new global currency for the masses. From the start, the key was not code, it was trust. Ruja would present herself as the genius visionary behind the system, the doctor of finance who understood what others did not. The network would present OneCoin as an opportunity to join the next big revolution before it reached the rest of the world. The stage was almost set. All that remained was to turn the idea into a machine that could pull in money from every continent. In early 2014, OneCoin officially launched from offices in Sofia. On paper, it was framed as an education company selling courses on cryptocurrency and trading. Buyers did not simply purchase coins. They bought packages of learning materials that included so-called tokens. Those tokens could then be used to mine OneCoin on the company platform. In reality, there was no public blockchain to inspect, no transparent record of transactions that could be verified outside the company. The numbers customers saw on their screens were controlled entirely from inside the system. Ruja and her team built a sleek website, complete with ticking price charts and professional photographs. They produced glossy brochures in multiple languages, describing OneCoin as the next generation of cryptocurrency. Promotional material claimed it was faster, more scalable, more secure. Technical details were vague but sounded impressive to non-specialists. The real engine was the network. Promoters received generous commissions for bringing in new buyers. Webinars and hotel conferences sprang up in Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. In each room, newcomers were shown slides of Bitcoin's early price and told that OneCoin was at the same stage, but with better leadership. The company's own materials encouraged people to think big, to take loans to bring in family and friends. Some sold homes or emptied savings accounts to buy larger education packages, convinced that coins on a screen would soon be worth 10 times, 100 times what they had paid. From the outside, the numbers began to swell rapidly. From the inside, a few people already knew there was a problem. In genuine cryptocurrencies, every transaction is recorded on a blockchain, a public ledger distributed across computers worldwide. Anyone can inspect the history. Anyone can verify that coins exist and have moved. That transparency is what gives the system its strength. OneCoin did not have that. Instead, it ran on a closed database controlled by the company. No independent coder could examine its structure. No honest auditor could confirm how many coins there were, or whether they were really being mined. Internally, messages later uncovered by investigators showed staff joking about creating coins out of thin air. The company could change balances with a few keystrokes, increasing the apparent value of accounts to keep optimism high. The price of OneCoin was not set by market forces. It was decided by the company itself. When some early critics asked technical questions, they were brushed aside. Promoters told them that the technology was too advanced to reveal, that secrecy was necessary for security. Those who pushed harder were labeled as haters or jealous outsiders who had missed their chance. For the thousands already earning commissions, there was little incentive to look deeper. As long as money kept flowing in, events grew larger, and balances on screens kept climbing. The story felt true enough. In this environment, Ruja's role became more important than ever. She was not just the founder. She was the symbol that made people trust what they could not see.
If you have 1,000 coins on your account and 1,000 in the mining, what we will do as a company, we will double the coins on your account.
Ruja understood the power of spectacle. She did not appear on stage like a quiet executive. She entered like a star. At OneCoin events, she walked under bright lights in glittering gowns, often with a red lipstick and diamonds that caught every flash. In 2014 and 2015, she toured cities across Europe and Asia, speaking to conference halls packed with thousands of people. She told them that banks had failed, that Bitcoin was only a test, and that OneCoin would become the #1 global cryptocurrency. On one famous night in London, she stepped onto the stage of a large arena while music thundered and spotlights swept over the crowd. Behind her, screens displayed images of spinning coins and rising charts. She promised that OneCoin would soon be accepted everywhere, that those who joined now would become part of financial history. The performance worked. Videos of her speeches spread through social media. Promoters played them at living room meetings and hotel seminars. People who had never written a line of code or read a financial report were told that this woman was a genius who had already done the hard work for them.
We will be the biggest out there, and we will write history. And the cryptocurrency community will have to rewrite philosophy.
Her title as Cryptoqueen was repeated so often that it seemed almost official. She mixed talk of innovation with luxury, appearing at events in private jets, expensive cars, and exclusive venues. If she were a fraud, many thought, how could she be so public, so confident, so rich? For a while, the show drowned out the questions, but questions were still coming. By 2015, OneCoin had spread far beyond Europe. Recruitment exploded in Asia, particularly in China and Southeast Asia, where groups organized mass sign-up sessions. In Africa and the Middle East, leaders presented OneCoin as a chance to leap past local banking limits and join a global economy. The structure rewarded aggressive growth. Members were urged to bring in entire communities, to hold church meetings, family gatherings, and business presentations. Each new investment fed the system, sending commissions upward and encouraging even more recruitment. People bought education packages at different levels, from modest entries to expensive bundles, costing the same as a house. In return, they saw digital balances on a website, showing their coins steadily increasing in value. Private Facebook groups and chat rooms buzzed with screenshots and testimonials. Some early participants did manage to withdraw money, particularly those close to the top of local structures. Their stories served as proof for others, evidence that the system worked. What most did not see was that these payouts came not from actual trading profits, but from the ever-growing stream of new investments. Estimates later suggested that OneCoin drew in billions of euros from around the world. For many families, the money they sent represented life savings, mortgages, or borrowed funds they could not easily replace. Behind the scenes, banks in several countries began noticing large and unusual transfers linked to OneCoin accounts. Suspicion was gathering, even as applause still echoed in stadiums.
We will say to the regulators that we are the most transparent, most powerful, and most legal cryptocurrency out there.
Financial regulators in some countries were among the first to raise alarms. In 2015, warnings appeared in official bulletins describing OneCoin as a high-risk scheme and advising the public to stay away. Some agencies labeled it clearly as a suspected pyramid. In smaller markets, local police received complaints from citizens who could not withdraw funds as promised. When these cases were passed upward, investigators quickly realized that the company's structure crossed multiple borders. No single office could easily shut it down. Journalists began to dig into the story. They looked for a public blockchain and found none. They asked independent experts to review OneCoin's claims and found little solid technology behind the grand words. Some wrote articles calling it a fraud in progress. OneCoin responded by attacking critics, insisting they were working for rival coins or traditional banks. Promoters were told to ignore negative press and focus on the vision. New recruits were urged to trust the doctor who had built the system, not strangers on the internet. Inside the company, there were signs that legal pressure was rising. Bank accounts linked to OneCoin were closed in several countries. Money moved through more complex routes, sometimes via shell companies or payment processors with loose oversight. Still, the top leadership projected confidence. Ruja continued to appear calm in meetings, insisting that governments simply did not understand innovation. For many, her certainty was enough to keep believing.
So we will not only be the choice for the merchants, but also the choice of the regulators, the governments, and whoever is out there.
As 2016 progressed, more experienced voices in the cryptocurrency community spoke out. Developers pointed out that OneCoin offered no way for an outsider to verify its supply or its code. There was no public wallet software, no independent exchanges, no open transactions. Former employees began quietly contacting authorities in Europe and the United States. Some described chaotic internal systems, sudden changes to coin balances, and instructions to keep technical details vague when speaking to customers. A small group decided to cooperate fully with investigators. Leaked documents and emails painted a stark picture. In one, a senior figure reportedly acknowledged that OneCoin was not a real cryptocurrency at all, but a database. In another, there was talk of taking the money and running if regulators closed in too hard. At the same time, new promotions grew more extravagant. Events promised that OneCoin would soon launch a public exchange, allowing people to convert their digital coins into regular money at high values. Deadlines were set and then quietly pushed back. Each delay was explained as a technical or regulatory hurdle. For some participants, these broken promises marked the first moment of real doubt. For others, fear of admitting a mistake kept them locked in. To accept that the project might be fake would mean accepting that their savings were gone. Ruja remained the central figure holding these fractures together. As long as she appeared on stage, many still believed the future she described.
We have today the most users. We are the biggest crypto reserve currency out there.
Inside OneCoin's inner circle, the atmosphere was different from the hopeful mood of public events. According to later court testimony, key executives discussed legal risks, banking problems, and the growing interest of American investigators. The scale of the incoming money had drawn attention at the highest levels. Ruja divided her time between Sofia, other European cities, and Dubai, where she controlled accounts and real estate. She traveled on private jets, sometimes accompanied by security. Staff were kept on a need-to-know basis, with only a few privy to the real structure of the system. Those close to her described a woman who could switch quickly between charm and coldness. In one moment, she spoke warmly about helping ordinary people escape poverty. In another, she demanded total obedience and mocked those who questioned her instructions. She purchased luxury apartments, artwork, and jewelry, including large diamonds that could be moved easily and stored discreetly. Documents later revealed properties held through offshore companies, making it difficult to track her net worth precisely. There were also signs that trust within the inner circle was beginning to fray. Some partners worried that she might leave them behind if pressure grew too intense. Others feared that someone inside the team might turn informant. Outside, the public image remained smooth. Inside, the sense of approaching danger was getting harder to ignore. In the background, agencies in the United States had begun building a case. They traced money flows through correspondent banks, gathered statements from victims, and interviewed former insiders. They also monitored promotional events that reached American citizens, even if the company itself operated abroad. By 2017, federal prosecutors had assembled a detailed picture of OneCoin as a global fraud scheme. Grand jury indictments were prepared under charges including wire fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. Arrest warrants were drafted for key figures, including Ruja herself. The aim was to coordinate arrests across borders, seizing people and assets quickly before they could disappear. But leaks happen, and pressure creates rumors. Some in the OneCoin network sensed that something serious was coming. In October of that year, Ruja was scheduled to appear at a major company event in Lisbon, Portugal. Promoters told attendees that she would make important announcements about the future of the coin. Tickets were sold, travel booked, anticipation carefully fed. But just days before that event, she took a different flight instead, the one from Sofia to Athens. From there, her trail dissolves into uncertainty. The timing was not a coincidence. The Americans were ready to move. So was she. On the morning of her disappearance, Ruja arrived at Sofia Airport without the usual media attention. There were no fans taking photos, no official photographer, no clips for company social media channels. She dressed more simply than usual, though still with the air of a woman accustomed to status. Travel records show that she boarded a commercial flight to Athens. There is no public evidence of any further travel under her known identity after that point. Once in Greece, it is believed she left the airport without triggering any alerts in border control systems. Investigators later considered several options. She might have transferred directly to a private jet at a smaller airfield. She might have used alternate documents prepared in advance. She might have been met on arrival by associates with connections in organized crime. Family members told authorities that contact with her stopped abruptly around this time. Business partners received no more direct instructions. From the perspective of the OneCoin network, their Cryptoqueen had gone silent. The Lisbon event went ahead without her. Executives offered explanations: illness, schedule changes, last-minute emergencies. But for some who had begun to sense trouble, her absence felt like something else. The sound of a door closing quietly. Within days, law enforcement actions began in multiple countries. The woman at the center of the storm was no longer within immediate reach. After Ruja vanished, the legal cases accelerated. Her closest business partner, Sebastian Greenwood, was arrested abroad and later extradited to face charges. Her brother, Konstantin Ignatov, who had stepped into a leadership role in OneCoin, was detained in the United States when he traveled there in 2019. In court, prosecutors laid out the structure of OneCoin as a fraudulent scheme that had taken billions from victims worldwide. They presented emails, banking records, and witness testimony from former employees. Constantine eventually pleaded guilty and agreed to cooperate, admitting that OneCoin had no real blockchain and that the price was manipulated. Other figures faced trial as well, including a lawyer accused of laundering proceeds through investment funds and shell companies. Jurors heard how money coursed through accounts in the Caribbean, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe. In many cases, tracing it to its final destination proved difficult. Throughout these proceedings, the same name appeared again and again at the top of organizational charts and email threads: Ruja. Yet the woman herself was nowhere to be found. Victims followed the news closely. Some crowded into courtrooms or watched from afar, hoping for a sense of justice. They heard apologies, admissions, and explanations from those who had stayed within reach of law enforcement. But the person most responsible for the story they had believed remained only a face in old videos, staring back at them from screens like a ghost made of pixels. As investigators mapped the flow of money, another map emerged: the human cost. Families in Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas had poured savings into OneCoin. Some had sold property, cars, businesses, while some Africans had sold their entire family's goat herd to buy more packages before prices allegedly rose. In towns and villages, the scheme often spread through trusted relationships. Friends persuaded friends. Relatives convinced relatives. Community leaders endorsed the project publicly. When the system began to fail, these same bonds turned into lines of tension and blame. Many victims were reluctant to speak openly. Shame kept them quiet. To admit they had been deceived felt like admitting stupidity, even though the deception had been crafted by professionals using sophisticated psychological and marketing techniques. In interviews that did reach the press, some described checking their OneCoin balances obsessively, watching numbers rise on a screen that could not be cashed out. Others recalled how withdrawals were allowed only under restrictive conditions, often linked to new sales targets or special events. For those who had recruited others, the guilt was heavier. They had not only lost their own money, they had helped bring others into the scheme. The face they remembered from the stage, the woman in the glittering dress, became an image they could no longer trust. Behind every statistic in court documents was a real story of loss, strained relationships, and dreams that had turned to dust inside a password-protected account. As the cases progressed, investigators tried repeatedly to locate Ruja. They examined flight logs, bank transfers, and property records. They interviewed associates and informants who might know where she had gone. Several possible paths emerged. One theory suggested she had traveled from Athens to the Middle East, where she had already held accounts and assets. Another proposed she had sought protection from powerful criminal networks, with whom her business dealings had intersected. A third argued she might never have left Europe at all. Intelligence reports hinted at continued movement of funds linked to entities connected with her. However, conclusively tying these activities to a living person proved difficult without current photographs, verified signatures, or direct communication. Families of victims watched each new rumor with a mix of hope and anger. They wanted her found, brought to trial, confronted with the consequences of what she had built. Lawyers representing them urged agencies to keep the search active. Meanwhile, the recordings of her speeches remained online, studied by fraud experts and psychologists who analyzed how she had combined authority, glamour, and urgency. They noted how often she promised certainty in a world where real investments offer none. At the center of this growing body of evidence was a simple fact that no one could change. For years, the architect of OneCoin had remained utterly silent. In 2022, the case reached a new level of visibility. The Federal Bureau of Investigation in the United States added Ruja Ignatova to its 10 most wanted fugitives list. Her photograph joined a gallery usually reserved for violent criminals and cartel leaders. The Bureau described OneCoin as a fraudulent scheme that had generated billions in revenue through false claims. They offered a significant reward for information leading to her arrest. Posters and digital notices circulated, showing her face alongside basic details: her age, her known languages, her past movements. This public step signaled that authorities still believed she was alive. Organizations do not allocate such resources to someone they consider definitely dead, but they did not say where they thought she might be. The listing prompted a new wave of tips. Some claimed to have seen her in Dubai, living under protection. Others reported sightings in Eastern Europe, often without corroborating evidence. Most leads could not be verified. Fraud experts pointed out that disappearing completely is difficult in the modern world. Passports, financial transactions, and communications all leave traces. Yet someone with access to large sums of unaccounted money and potentially dangerous associates might still slip through gaps in enforcement. The case now stood at a strange crossroads, partly historical, partly ongoing, its main figure frozen in time on a wanted poster. One of the more serious theories pursued by investigators is that Ruja sought protection from organized crime. The scale of the money involved in OneCoin would have intersected with networks experienced in moving funds, creating shell structures, and hiding assets. Some reports suggested she had connections in the Balkans and the Middle East, regions where powerful groups operate in the shadows of legitimate business. If she transferred a portion of her wealth into their hands in exchange for safety, catching her would become far more difficult. In this scenario, she would live under guard in a controlled environment, limited public exposure, strict rules on communication. Plastic surgery could alter her appearance enough to pass unnoticed in crowded cities. With new documents, she might appear in official systems under another name entirely. Investigators weigh this theory carefully because it fits known patterns. Major financial criminals have historically sought shelter with such organizations when facing long sentences and global warrants. However, this path is not without risk. People who know too much or who hold access to large sums can become liabilities. Protection can turn into captivity. Partnership into threat. Whether Ruja entered such an arrangement remains unproven, but the possibility that she traded freedom in public for safety in the shadows is one of the darker strands in this story. Another possibility often discussed is that Ruja chose a different route to erase herself in plain sight. With access to money and time, a person can alter not just clothing and hair, but fundamental aspects of appearance. Cosmetic surgeons in various parts of the world offer procedures that can change facial structure, eye shape, and overall profile. Combined with weight loss or gain, different styling, and a new wardrobe, the transformation can be striking. Most people recognize others through patterns they have seen repeatedly. Change those patterns enough, and even a known face can slide past attention. If Ruja underwent such changes, then acquired new identity papers through criminal channels or corrupt officials, she could in theory move across borders as someone else. Low-profile travel, limited digital presence, and careful use of intermediaries for financial transactions would make detection even harder. Supporters of this theory point to the lack of confirmed sightings that match her original, highly recognizable look. They argue that someone so skilled at performance would understand the power of simply becoming a different character. Skeptics counter that maintaining such a disguise indefinitely would be extremely challenging, especially for someone used to luxury and attention. They question whether she could truly give up the stage. For now, the possibility remains on the board. A scenario where the Cryptoqueen still walks through airports and city streets, but no longer as the woman seen on those old OneCoin stages. A third theory is more final. It suggests that Ruja did not live long after her disappearance from public view, that the same criminal connections which might have protected her also had reasons to remove her. In this version, she becomes a liability. She knows too much about money flows, shell companies, and hidden accounts. If arrested, she could trade that knowledge for reduced sentences. If pressured, she could expose partners who prefer to remain invisible. Rumors have surfaced over the years of conversations in criminal circles, hinting that she was killed after going into hiding. None of these claims have been backed by verifiable evidence. No body has been found. No official confirmation has been made. From an investigative standpoint, a death without proof must be treated carefully. Law enforcement agencies require more than rumor to close a file. Until physical evidence or reliable witness testimony emerges, a fugitive is usually considered alive. For victims, this theory stirs mixed feelings. Some feel it would mean she never faced justice in a courtroom. Others think of it as a kind of rough consequence delivered outside legal systems. The absence of concrete information allows such ideas to grow. In the dark space created by uncertainty, stories multiply. There is also a quieter possibility, less dramatic than secret bunkers or violent ends. It is that Ruja simply retreated into a discreet life, relying on a portion of hidden assets carefully managed through trusted intermediaries. In this model, she would avoid major cities and celebrity circles. She might live in a gated compound, a remote estate, or a private island community where privacy is enforced by wealth. Day-to-day life would be comfortable but constrained. Money providing comfort, fear of exposure providing boundaries. Contact with family could be limited to secure channels or mediated through others. Business decisions might be handled through lawyers and front figures, with her name never appearing in documents. Supporters of this theory note that large frauds have funded such retirements in the past. If enough money was moved before accounts were frozen, and if those funds were placed in jurisdictions resistant to outside pressure, ongoing survival would be possible. Against this stands the difficulty of absolute secrecy. People talk, staff leave, but documents leak. The longer a hidden arrangement lasts, the more chances there are for small mistakes to draw attention. Whether she chose a dramatic escape or a quiet retreat, the key obstacle for investigators remains the same: turning possibilities into provable facts. Despite the uncertainties, the formal position of the law is clear. Indictments in the United States remain active. warrants have not been withdrawn. If Ruja is found and arrested, she faces charges that could result in a very long prison sentence. International organizations continue to keep her on wanted lists. Her image and details are circulated to police forces and border agencies. Databases are updated to flag any travel documents or financial accounts that might be linked to her identity. From time to time, new pieces of information surface. A reported sighting, a suspicious transaction, a testimony from someone once connected to OneCoin. Each is evaluated, cross-checked, and either added to the open file or set aside. The legal aftermath of OneCoin also continues in civil courts. Victims pursue compensation where possible, targeting assets that can be traced and seized. Some have recovered small portions of their losses. Many have not. For prosecutors, the case serves as a reference point when building charges in future cryptocurrency frauds. It shows how quickly such schemes can spread and how wide their damage can reach. Through all of this, one fact persists. The central architect has not yet stood before a judge. Without drifting into philosophy, investigators and analysts have drawn practical lessons from the OneCoin story. They point to warning signs that appeared early: centralized control, lack of a public blockchain, guaranteed returns, heavy reliance on recruitment, and emotional marketing. Financial educators now use the case as a clear example of how modern scams can wrap themselves in cutting-edge language. Terms like cryptocurrency, blockchain, and financial revolution can be used to mask very old structures of fraud. Regulators in multiple countries have since strengthened their approach to virtual assets. They demand clearer disclosures, more transparent operations, and registration for companies that sell investment-linked products. They also monitor cross-border payment flows more closely for patterns seen in OneCoin. Technology itself is not the villain in this story. Several genuine cryptocurrencies operate on transparent, verifiable code, but the gap between what most people understand and what specialists know provides fertile ground for deception when combined with persuasive personalities. For individuals, the practical takeaway is simple. If an opportunity offers huge returns with little risk, cannot be independently verified, and discourages questions, caution is warranted. In that sense, the shadow of the Cryptoqueen extends beyond her personal story into the broader landscape of digital finance. Today, many people encounter Ruja for the first time not in person, but through archived footage. Clips of her stadium speeches still circulate online, her voice ringing with certainty, her smile confident as thousands cheer. New viewers who know the outcome watch these recordings with a different eye. They look for cracks in the performance, for hints of doubt in her expression, for any sign that she knew how it would end. Whether such signs exist or are simply projected after the fact is impossible to say with certainty. For victims, these videos can be painful to revisit. They remember the exact moment they decided to trust her words, the slide she showed that convinced them, the feeling in the room when she promised financial transformation. For fraud investigators, the footage is a study in technique. They note how she framed the narrative as us versus them, visionary innovators versus slow regulators and jealous critics. They analyze the rhythm of her speeches, how she moved quickly past technical details and lingered on emotional triggers like fear of missing out. The irony is stark. In trying to erase herself physically, she left behind a large digital record. Even if she never appears again in person, her image and voice remain fixed in time as warnings and lessons. The Crypto Queen may be missing in the physical world, but in the world of screens, she is present whenever someone presses play. Beyond courtrooms and theories, there are the people who once stood close to her, family members, former partners, employees who believed they were working for an ambitious but legitimate company until evidence proved otherwise. Her brother, after pleading guilty and cooperating, now awaits his own final sentencing, living under the restrictions placed on those who have turned state witness. Former executives have faced bans, fines, and prison sentences. Their careers in finance are effectively over. In Bulgaria and Germany, people who knew Ruja before OneCoin have spoken of their surprise and their lack of surprise. Some recall early signs of ruthlessness or grand ambition. Others say they never imagined she would become the face of such a massive fraud. There are also employees who worked in lower-level roles: call center staff, translators, administrative assistants. Many lost jobs and reputations when the company collapsed, even if they had little idea of the true nature of the scheme. For them, the story is not just about a mastermind, but about being swept up in something they did not fully control or understand. Their experiences show how large operations require many hands, not all of which are on the steering wheel. The absence of Ruja leaves them with unresolved emotions, anger, betrayal, and in some cases lingering fear of what might happen if they speak too freely. Modern investigations rely heavily on digital traces. Emails, server logs, chat histories, and transaction records can reveal patterns that once would have been hidden. In the OneCoin case, many such records have already supported convictions. Yet when it comes to Ruja's current location, the digital trail becomes thin. Any devices she uses now are likely registered under other names or pay-as-you-go plans. Any accounts she accesses may be controlled through layers of front companies or encrypted channels. Specialized teams monitor cryptocurrency movements that might be tied to addresses linked with OneCoin proceeds. They study mixers, privacy coins, and other obfuscation tools. But after funds pass through enough stages, connecting them to a specific individual becomes increasingly complex. Occasionally, reports surface of intercepted communications mentioning her name. These may reflect real knowledge, old gossip, or even deliberate disinformation designed to mislead investigators. Sorting signal from noise is part of the work. In many ways, the search for the Crypto Queen reflects the new reality of fugitive tracking in a digital and globalized age. Borders matter less than networks. Appearance matters less than data. Yet in this case, data alone has not yet been enough. The trail remains a series of lines that stop just before reaching a clear destination. Even though OneCoin's main operations have been shut down or crippled by legal actions, the brand has not vanished entirely. In some corners of the internet, remnants of the community still argue that the project was real, that mistakes were made, but that the core idea was sound. In other spaces, her name is invoked as a cautionary symbol. Educators warn new investors, do not fall for another Crypto Queen. Journalists use OneCoin as a reference point when new questionable schemes appear, asking whether history is repeating itself. For law enforcement agencies, the case serves as a training example. It shows how cross-border fraud can scale rapidly. when combined with modern communication tools and old-style multi-level marketing structures. It also underlines the importance of international cooperation. In pop culture, she has become a figure of fascination. Podcasts, documentaries, and books examine her rise and disappearance. Some portray her as a mastermind, others as a product of an era that rewarded boldness over caution. What is consistent across these portrayals is the sense of an unfinished story. Most crime narratives end with arrest, confession, or confirmed death. The Cryptoqueen remains a name attached to both a massive crime and an open question. Without drifting into long reflection, investigators often note the recurring human pattern evident in this case. People wanted to believe in a simple path to wealth. They wanted a guide who sounded certain in a world of confusing change. Ruja offered that certainty, wrapped in technical language and visual glamour. Her story aligns with older frauds built around railroads, telegraphs, oil, or the early internet. Each era has its new technology that most people do not fully understand but feel they should not miss. In the 21st century, that technology has been cryptocurrency and blockchain. By studying OneCoin, regulators and educators hope to reduce the impact of future schemes built on the next innovation, whether that will be artificial intelligence, quantum computing, or something yet unnamed. The underlying vulnerabilities will be similar. For individual listeners, the lesson is not to distrust all new tools, but to recognize how easily excitement can be used as cover by those seeking only personal gain. Ruja's disappearance turns the case from a closed chapter into an ongoing reminder. Every time her wanted notice appears, it signals that the story is still active, that consequences are still possible. The pattern will only be fully broken if education and vigilance outrun the next Cryptoqueen. Imagining the night before her disappearance is not about sympathy, but about clarity. Somewhere, perhaps in Sofia, Ruja would have seen documents outlining upcoming legal moves. She would have heard from advisors that investigations were reaching critical points. She had choices. She could have remained, hired lawyers, and prepared a defense. She could have stepped forward publicly, claiming that OneCoin had simply grown faster than systems could handle. Instead, she chose to step onto that flight. That decision may have been planned long in advance, with routes, identities, and contacts arranged. It may also have been driven by a sudden realization that the stage lights were about to turn off. Only she knows which is true. What is clear is that from that point forward, every movement would carry different weight. A hotel booking, a call, a signature. Any of these could reveal her. For someone used to walking into arenas to applause, the contrast of moving cautiously through shadows must have been sharp. Whether she felt fear, anger, determination, or a cold calculation, no record tells us. The file picks up again only through indirect traces and other people's actions. Between the last confirmed camera image in Sofia and the first unconfirmed rumor elsewhere lies a gap that defines this mystery. As of now, the official status of Dr. Ruja Ignatova is simple and stark. She is a wanted fugitive. The charges remain. The victims remain. The investigations, though quieter than before, continue. Law enforcement agencies do not typically close such cases without strong proof. Until clear evidence surfaces that she is dead, they will assume she may still be brought to trial. Rewards remain on offer. Her name remains on lists checked every day by systems around the world. For victims, the lack of closure can be difficult. Some have decided to move on, focusing on rebuilding their finances and lives. Others still watch for news, hoping that one morning they will wake to headlines announcing her capture. For the wider public, the Cryptoqueen story serves as both warning and puzzle. It shows how far charisma and a convincing narrative can travel when combined with new technology. It also shows that even in an age saturated with cameras and data, a determined person with enough resources can still slip away. Unless and until she is found, this case will remain in a strange state, not cold, not hot, but suspended, an unfinished chapter in the history of financial crime. You have been listening to the story of the Cryptoqueen, a woman who turned digital promises into billions, then stepped onto a plane and disappeared. Her victims live with the consequences every day. The law still waits for its chance to speak. If you found this account helpful in understanding how such a scheme could grow so large, consider subscribing to Sleepy Mysteries. Here, we explore real stories where facts read like fiction, where disappearances, decisions, and deceptions leave traces that still matter. Share this episode with anyone curious about cryptocurrency, online investments, or modern frauds. Sometimes hearing how a trap was built can help someone avoid the next one. And next time, join Regina Sage Monroe as we move from the digital world back into the physical one, to a place where a luxury ship slipped beneath the ice, leaving lifeboats, questions, and a mystery that still chills the sea. Until then, this is Sleepy Mysteries, thanking you for listening and reminding you that in every bright new promise, it is worth asking quietly, what is real?